Hi everyone, it's Dr. Shivi Raya. Welcome to the Connecting to Your Joy Module 2. This module is all about what sparks joy for you. Hopefully you have watched Module 1, which was about the brain-heart connection and how that connects you to your joy. In this module, you'll be covering 4 lessons. The first lesson involves how to connect with what sparks joy for you. The second lesson involves you taking a closer look at what disconnects you from your joy. The third and the fourth lessons you'll be familiar with from the first module, but this is just another form of practice of how you're going to offer joy to yourself through daily rituals that you create that are inspired by your own connection to your brain and your heart. And the fourth lesson involves you tuning in to the intuitive brain and heart to listen to what truly is what you want to do and what your desires are and how that connects you to your joy. So this lesson is a lovely lesson because this is the lesson where you look at what truly sparks joy for you. So here's what we'll cover in this lesson. We're going to talk about how to connect with what sparks joy for you, how to prioritize what sparks joy for you, and this is an area that a lot of people have difficulty with because we often feel like we can't prioritize this for ourselves, but this is really crucial to us connecting to our joy. We're going to look at what thoughts and feelings we've gone shopping for so far in our life. And then we're going to look at what thoughts and feelings we would like to go shopping for. And I say shopping because most people understand that when you go to the shops, you go and look at what you want as opposed to getting something you don't want. So anyway, we'll go into that in a bit more detail soon. So how do we connect with what actually sparks joy for ourselves? So in Module 1, you were listening to what I call the whispers of your heart, or in other words, the connection of your intuition. So you've got your intuitive brain and your intuitive heart. And when we truly tune into both those aspects, we can work out how we can find the activities or the feelings or the thoughts that actually spark joy for us. So today we're going to build a little bit on that heart-centered breathing, and we did this in Module 1, but the more we practice on this, the easier it gets to understanding what sparks joy for us. And sometimes when we are feeling a little bit low or flat or anxious, one of the ways we can flip that switch for ourselves is to practice gratitude. Because when we are practicing gratitude, we are focusing on the feeling of gratitude for something that is positive in our lives, that we can create that either that image or that thought or that feeling, which then activates that thinking brain and the feeling brain to engage in an emotion that feels positive, that feels joyful for ourselves. And so that's how gratitude actually gets us to flip from that neural circuit or neural wiring of the thinking and the feeling brain from a place of despondency or depression or anxiety into a feeling of joy. So in a short minute, we're actually going to do that heart-centered breathing exercise. And what I would like you to focus on is not just the thoughts that run through your mind, but also any feelings that arise when you're doing this little exercise, as well as any sort of sounds that might come into your mind, or even any images that come into your mind. So you might recall a memory of a chirping bird or a rustling leaf or an image of a brook or a hillside. Whatever it is, I would like you to grab a journal so that you can jot down what is coming up for you as we're doing the exercise or just after we've done the exercise. The other thing that's really, really fun to do is to carry a little pocket-sized happiness book. And this happiness book is an opportunity for you to jot down anything that makes you smile from the inside out. And it's usually a really good practice to actually carry it alongside with you in your handbag or your pocket or anywhere that is comfortable, so that anytime something makes you smile, you actually write it out in your happiness book. And when you're writing it out, you're reinforcing it to your mind that this is something that brings you joy. And somewhere in the back of you, you will remember this, so that when it comes time for you to pick an activity that brings you joy, you have an ever increasing list of joyful activities or moments or images or whatever it is that you can pick on to try and recreate for yourself, once again swapping you from any place of lack into that place of joy. So remember, your natural state is this state of feeling joy. So this is the state that you want to access for yourself. And anytime you're feeling the opposite of that, it's just an opportunity for you to get back in flow with yourself. And remember, the reason why we're doing this from module 1 is that you're engaging your thinking brain and your feeling brain, and you are trying to increase the neural circuits of joy that are wiring into your brain over and over and over again, so that you can engage your automatic brain, which is that cerebellum, so that it sets that internal emotional landscape of joy for you as the background, so that then that overrides all of the unconscious programs of lack or low mood or anxiety with a new program of joy, which was actually the original program that you were born with. Breathe in and out, taking deep breaths in and out through your heart. Feel your heartbeat and think of something that you feel so grateful about. As you feel grateful about it, ask yourself, what are some of the things that bring you joy? What are some of the moments that bring you joy? Now feel all of this joy throughout your body, as if you are there in that place or in that moment right now. Sounds, see the sight, feel with your heart and your body. You may even remember the scent. What words that were spoken. And with each breath in and out, embrace the whole experience as if it is happening now. gratitude to yourself for this moment. So how do you prioritize what brings you joy? It's so important to be kind to your inner child and your inner woman. Now, obviously, if you're a man watching this, then this is applicable to you as well, because you are going to be kind to your inner child and inner man. It is important to make the decision to prioritize yourself in your mind as part of your self-love journey. What I mean by that is it is important for you to prioritize yourself in this whole process of bringing yourself joy. Too often than not, most of us, especially if you're a mother, you may be prioritizing your kids, your partner, your parents, your brother or sister or your friends, prioritizing everyone except yourself. In other words, you may be placing yourself last on the list. But if you think of yourself as having this inner child and taking care of your inner child, then some part of you will not feel right about putting your inner child last on the list. And so this is about not only connecting back with your inner child, but your inner adult self as well. It is about combining both your inner child and your inner adult's desires into one, and really prioritizing them and prioritizing what brings you joy and prioritizing yourself. So that is really, really crucial in this process of connecting to your joy. The other thing is choosing your thoughts and feelings. Now, often you might feel like, well, how can I choose my feelings because I just feel sad or I feel anxious and that's just how I feel. And I'm here to say to you that whatever you're feeling, that's completely fine, and it is totally okay for you to feel whatever it is you're feeling. This is not about judging what you're feeling. This is not about pushing it down or putting a towel over those feelings and pretending that they don't exist. That is not at all what I'm asking you to do here. It is so important for you to acknowledge and accept those feelings. And at the same time, it is really, really important to have an alternative thought or feeling to go to. In other words, what you want is you want to be choosing the thoughts and feelings that you want in your inner space. You want to think of your thoughts and your feelings as your best friends. As Louise Hay, one of the famous authors out there, has said, make your thoughts and feelings your best friends. And I really like that, because sometimes when you catch yourself thinking a thought or a feeling about yourself or somebody else that doesn't really bring you any harmony, you want to think, well, is that the sort of friend that I would like to have in my space, or would I like something different? And then once you've sort of started to go through that inner journey, the next thing that you would want to ask yourself is, what is one thing you could do today to bring yourself joy? And sometimes when your day is full of responsibilities, you might have household chores, you might have work, you might have kids to pick up, or you might have to run errands for family members, and so on and so forth. The list of things to do might be endless. But if you're struggling to identify what is one thing that you would really love to do today, perhaps one of the ways to think about it is, if you didn't have all of those responsibilities on your plate, what is the one thing that you would really love to do today? And even if you feel like you can't actually carry out that task, if you just give yourself the permission to identify it, that in itself is a huge monumental shift. Because if you give yourself the permission to identify what it is that you truly want to do, and then write it down either in your journal or a piece of paper or somewhere that you can see it, then you know that even if you may not be able to carry that particular activity out or that particular moment out right now, it is something that you can come back to at a later moment in time. But the fact that you're creating space in your mind to even acknowledge that for yourself, that is huge. That is actually a huge shift, sometimes even more than carrying out the action, because you've then created a space for yourself to connect to something that is joyful deep inside of you. So this is where you want to take your journal out and have a few areas in your life that you really take a closer look at what you have shopped for in your life. So I hope you've got your journal out, and if you haven't, just pause this video and get it out. And then write down the first category, which is your body. So what I'd like you to now do is look at what thoughts and feelings you have had about your body that's been predominant. So for instance, if you've always thought, well, I have a really nice smile, or I have beautiful eyes, or I have gorgeous skin, then write those down. And at the same time, anything that you haven't liked about your body, write that down as well. And even if you don't necessarily say it every day to yourself, write it down if you know that that is how you think or feel about yourself deep down, because that is the unconscious program that you're holding of lack within yourself deep down inside. So pause this video when you need to write it down, and then you can unpause it when you go to the next category. So you want to do a similar thing for each one of the categories that I have listed on this page. So health is one of those categories. Finances is another category. Family, friends, and work is also another category. And you just want to keep it simple. So you just want to jot down one or two thoughts or feelings that you have that are predominant for each of these categories. And if you like, you can focus on one or two things that you think are positive and one or two things that you feel not so good or contracted within yourself about in each of these categories. Now have a look at the list of all of those things that you have written and see how they may be conscious or unconscious tapes that are playing in the background. So remember what we talked about in the module 1, where we were talking about the thinking brain and the feeling brain. So these thoughts and feelings that you have about each one of these categories is actually the thinking and the feeling neural circuit that has been running through your thinking and your feeling brain, and it's become automated through your cerebellum to become your emotional landscape. So for instance, if you feel like you don't have close friendships or you feel isolated from your friends, that is the thought that you have about friendships, and then you feel that way as well. And then the chemicals between the thinking and the feeling brain keep running between each other. And then because you've run that program several times, the automatic brain inside of you then says, right, that is my emotional landscape. So they're the glasses. So like these glasses here, they're the glasses that you wear, which becomes the filter with which you see everything in your life, including any new or old friendships that you make. So remember, what you focus on grows. So now what I'd like you to do is think about how you would like to ideally feel in each of these categories. How would you love to feel about your body? How would you love to feel about your health? How would you love to have your financial situation be? What sort of connections would you love to have with your family? What would you really love to feel like when you are interacting with your family members? And what sort of friends would you love to have, and how would you love to feel in the company of these friends? And what sort of work would you like to have, and how would you love to feel at work? And the same with all of these, it's not just what thoughts would you love to have about these sections, but what would you love to feel about each of these categories? And remember, when you go shopping, you only shop for what you want. You don't just shop for neutral things, or you don't necessarily just shop for, things you don't like. You will almost always shop for something that you love. And sometimes the things that seem like necessities, you might shop for, but again, even with those, you can actually see if they bring you joy or not by how expanded or contracted you feel in your heart when you are looking at buying those things. So similarly with your body, your finances, your health, family, friends, and work, you can have a look at the thoughts and the feelings that make you feel expanded versus feeling contracted. So for instance, you might think of a particular friend, and as you think of that friend, you might actually feel quite contracted, and you might think, well, why do I feel that way? But it might just be that particular thought or feeling that you have of that friend may not be in alignment with yourself. Or if your thoughts and feelings are all completely, neutral and joyful about any person that you meet, then it might actually be that particular company that you are seeking to have may not be the one that aligns the deepest for you for your joy. So this is about actually trusting your body and your brain and that part of your heart that has that instinctive, intuitive drive in it. So if something is feeling good, then you will feel that experience in your body. So I just want you to take a few minutes and just pause this video and see if you can write down how you would like to think and feel in each of these categories.